Welcome back. Remember last January when Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton said the coronavirus was a result of a lab leak? Of course you do, because articles like these were everywhere, an attempt by the media to discredit his claim. But fast forward a year later, and it turns out Tom Cotton wasn't a conspiracy theorist. He was right on track. So now the media has some explaining to do, right? And who are they blaming? Donald Trump.
President Trump and Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, both suggested they had seen evidence that this was formed in a lab, and they also suggested it was not released on purpose, but they refused to release the evidence showing what it was. And so because of that, that made this instantly political. I think that it was, example 1000 when the Trump administration learned that when you have burned your own credibility over and over again, people are not immediately going to believe you, especially in an election year.
They do this every time, and we allow them to get away with it. Joining me live is Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, they do this every time. They lie, they spin, and we never hold them accountable.
Yeah. Lawrence, it's good to be on with you. The media last year was singing a very different tune. That's because I was pointing out that common sense says this virus probably came from those labs. I mean, it originated just a few blocks down the road from them in a city larger than New York, not exactly known for its large bat population. But because the media doesn't like my politics, and because President Trump said the same thing, the media lied and they spun and they covered up for the Chinese Communist Party, in effect. There needs to be an accounting for all of the reporting last spring that denied this reality, now that almost every mainstream outlet is acknowledging that not only is it possible, it's probably the case that this came from a laboratory in Wuhan.
So only the public can hold the media accountable. I know the public is watching this. They lied to you. They covered it because they didn't like the people where the information was coming from. Meanwhile, China is laughing at us. They're using it as propaganda. But what do we do from an investigation standpoint to hold China accountable? Because that's the real issue. Now that we know this, now that we know that we need to investigate even more, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, Lawrence, that's really the bottom line. I mean, the media lies and spins all the time about Republicans, but what really matters is that the American people understand what happened in Wuhan. Imagine if it turns out that the Chinese Communist Party, through its negligence and its deceitfulness, was responsible for unleashing this plague on the world. We need to demand answers. The Biden administration needs to demand answers, not continue to participate in the World Health Organization's whitewashing of the Chinese Communist Party's malevolence. They need to demand answers, and if they don't get answers, they need to impose a penalty for not giving us those answers. Until then, I think most Americans are reasonable in using their common sense to presume this virus most likely came from those laboratories.
Senator, I want to be careful here because I know you're an elected official, you get intelligence, I know that. But as an American, am I wrong to think that it may be possible that China may have did this intentionally?
Well, I haven't seen evidence of that, Lawrence, but I think the evidence we have all points to that laboratory. And the evidence that we've gained since last summer points to the laboratory as well. Look, it only took a few months to find the original host animal for SARS. Likewise, the original host animal for MERS. Presumably, China has been searching for this original host animal for this coronavirus, and yet they haven't discovered anything. You would think that if they actually believed it came from that food market or it came from bats out in the wild, they'd be producing those animals. Right. They haven't done it. Again, the Chinese Communist Party's silence, going all the way back to late 2019, speaks volumes to the American people.
So I got to ask this. The WHO isn't going to get answers for us. So who can get those answers?
Well, it needs to be the Biden administration acting in concert with our allies, demanding that China finally open up those labs, that they provide records of what was going on there, that they provide access to the personnel, and that if they don't do that, I mean, we need to stop all of our cooperation with China on any kind of scientific endeavor. Look, we've just learned in the last few weeks that Tony Fauci and his agency was indirectly funding very dangerous research in these laboratories to make coronaviruses more contagious. Dr. Fauci Fauci needs to answer those questions. More importantly, we need to ask, why are American tax dollars going to Chinese laboratories? And our allied friends around the world need to ask the same thing. We need to use that leverage and other points of leverage we have in our trading relationship and our economic relationship with China to demand that they finally provide transparency to the world.
Yeah. Tony Fauci refuses to answer questions correctly. He spins. When Rand Paul asked him, was there funding going on? He started to split hairs, and that shows you where he stands on this. Quite frankly, he shouldn't have a job. Senator, I hope you guys continue to hold him accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Now this.